The warehouse reeked of stale concrete and fear. Rain lashed against the roof. Marco the Lion Rossi stood tall, his gaze like steel. His reputation was carved in blood and respect. Tonight, a message needed sending. A rival crew had dared to cross his family, his territory. Now, they would pay dearly. His men moved like shadows, swift and brutal. The last of the rival gang members lay defeated, broken, whimpering. Marco stepped forward, his boots crunching on scattered glass. His eyes scanned the room, making sure the lesson was learned, that every detail conveyed authority. That's when he saw her. A young woman, no older than 20, huddled in a corner, eyes wide with terror. She wasn't one of them, clearly. She was just there, a civilian, caught in the wrong place at the worst time. She trembled, trying to hide her face behind tangled hair. But a sudden flash of lightning illuminated her frame. And Marco, the fearsome Marco Rossi, froze. Around her delicate neck, a silver chain gleamed. At its center, a small, worn locket. It was plain, unassuming, aged by time, except for one unmistakable detail. A tiny, hand-etched lion cub. The same lion cub Marco himself had carved years ago, a labor of love. The very same locket he had clasped around his little sister, Sophia's neck. The locket he had buried with her, 10 long, agonizing years ago, when she was tragically ripped from him by a cruel sickness. A gasp, sharp and involuntary, escaped his lips, a sound his men had never heard. His heart, usually a cold stone, hammered against his ribs. It couldn't be. Sophia was gone. She was dead. He had witnessed her final breaths. Yet, here it was. That necklace. On her neck. Who was this girl? And why did she wear his sister's most precious belonging? This couldn't be a random coincidence. This was a ghost from his past, haunting his violent present. It hinted at a truth far more dangerous, far more profound than any gang war. A truth that promised to tear his world apart, piece by piece, or perhaps, bring back a piece he thought was lost forever. Marco's world stopped spinning. The sounds of the rain, the distant shouts of his men, the groans of the defeated rivals, all faded. Only the girl and that locket existed for him, glowing with impossible, terrifying significance. His eyes, usually cold, were now alight with a furious mix of disbelief, a spark of hope, and an ancient, burning grief. Stop! His voice, a low rumble, cut through the chaos, instantly silencing every man. They knew that tone. It meant absolute, unquestioning attention. Leave them. He pointed to the defeated rivals. Get out, all of you, now. His loyal men obeyed without question. They cleared out swiftly, leaving Marco alone with the shivering girl. He took a single step closer, his gaze fixed on the locket. It was impossible. His little Sophia. He pictured her warm, small hand in his, her bright, innocent smile. She had loved that locket. He remembered carving the tiny lion cub, a symbol of their family, into the silver himself. He'd spent days on it. He remembered giving it to her, her eyes wide with joy. Sophia, always full of life, had faced her cruel illness with courage that shamed his own adult fears. He remembered holding her fragile, fading body as she slipped away. Her last breath, a whisper in the suffocating silence, still echoed in his nightmares. He remembered the earth, cold and unforgiving, as he lowered her casket. He remembered placing the locket, his final gift, carefully inside, a silent promise that she would never be alone. It was his last gift, his last goodbye. How could it possibly be here? How could it be on this stranger's neck? The girl flinched violently as he approached, pressing herself further into the damp concrete wall. Her breath came in ragged, terrified gasps. She looked incredibly frail, like a small, injured bird caught in a brutal storm. Her eyes, a startling shade of green, met his for a split second before darting away. They held fear, yes, a profound terror, but also a strange, tired defiance, an unspoken will to endure. She was clearly not part of the criminal underworld. She was just prey. But not to him. Not anymore. "Who are you? Where did you get that necklace?" His voice was rough, unaccustomed to such a personal question. The girl said nothing, only trembled harder. Tears welled in her eyes, but she held them back. She was trying to be brave, even in the face of the fearsome Marco Rossi. That fragile act of courage, even amidst her terror, struck him deeply. It reminded him, fleetingly, of Sofia. Marco ran a hand through his dark hair. Frustration warred with a powerful wave of emotion. This girl, this locket, it was like a brutal crack in the frozen ice that had been his heart for 10 agonizing years. He couldn't dismiss it. He couldn't let her go. Not until he knew the complete, agonizing truth. Every honed instinct screamed at him for answers, to uncover the hidden story. This wasn't just about a necklace. This was about a wound he thought had scarred over, now torn open, raw and bleeding hope. He looked around the empty warehouse. This was no place for questioning. He couldn't let anyone else see her with that locket. The implications, if his men knew, would be disastrous. But he didn't care about his empire, his power right now. He only cared about the truth. About Sofia. "Listen to me," he said, his voice softer now, gentler, though still firm. "I'm not going to hurt you, but you are coming with me. Do you understand? You will tell me everything." He watched her closely. Her eyes, still wide and vulnerable, searched his face, desperately trying to find a lie. But Marco was not lying. He would protect her, if only to unlock the profound secrets held by that small silver lion. This was more than a demand. It was a desperate, almost pleading cry from a man who had lost everything, now seeing a glimmer of his past resurrected. The path ahead was unknown, dangerously unclear, and would surely test his soul. But for the ghost of his sister, for the fragile hope she might still be alive, or for the devastating truth of what happened to her legacy, he would walk through hell. He would tear down his own world if he had to. He would find out. He had to find out. His decision was made, absolute and unwavering. This girl, whoever she was now his sole responsibility. Her safety, her secrets, her past, they were all inextricably linked to his own. He would guard her with his life until the truth about the locket, about Sofia, was finally uncovered. The powerful Mafia boss, feared by many, was suddenly a man driven by a single, desperate, fragile hope. And he would stop at nothing until that hope was either confirmed or brutally extinguished. Marco moved quickly, but with a surprising gentleness that belied his formidable reputation. He peeled his expensive jacket from his broad shoulders and offered it to her. She hesitated, still trembling from shock and cold. But the biting chill in the warehouse was undeniable. The rough, warm fabric of his coat seemed to offer a concrete promise of warmth, if not safety. Slowly she took it, clutching the heavy garment to her chest. It smelled distinctly of rain, expensive smoke, and something uniquely Marco. Power, danger, but also, surprisingly, strong protection. He led her out a back exit, away from where his men had been. A black sedan, gleaming in the pale dawn light, waited silently, its engine purring. His driver, Luca, a man of few words, gave Marco a quick, questioning look, but one sharp glance from Marco silenced any curiosity. The girl slid into the back seat, huddling instinctively into the corner, still clutching the oversized jacket. Marco got in beside her, creating a solid barrier between her and the dangerous world outside. The drive was silent, punctuated only by the rhythmic hum of the wipers against the persistent downpour, and the soft crackle of static from Marco's phone. Marco kept his intense eyes fixed on her, observing every detail. Her hands were small, delicate, but he noticed they were also scarred, marked by hardship. Her hair, tangled and dark, was streaked with dirt and grime. But her eyes, those striking green eyes, even filled with fear, held a deep, quiet intensity, a hidden fire. They were not exactly like Sophia's, which had been a brighter emerald, full of childish glee. But there was a spark, a hint of something achingly familiar in their depths, something that tugged relentlessly at Marco's painful memories. He drove her not to his sprawling mansion, a place too open for delicate secrets. Instead, he chose a smaller, private safe house. It was a secluded stone cottage nestled deep in the woods, a sanctuary where secrets could be safely kept. The silence there was absolute, profound, broken only by the gentle crackle of the fireplace he quickly lit, bringing warmth to the room. The first thing he did was offer her food and a warm drink. She ate slowly, warily, like a stray animal finding sustenance after a long famine. Her hunger was obvious, but her caution was stronger, a deeply ingrained habit. She barely looked at him, her gaze fixed instead on the mesmerizing, dancing flames. The locket still rested against her throat, a constant, painful reminder of his profound loss. And now, a burning beacon of his new, bewildering hope. "My name is Marco," he stated, his voice now entirely devoid of its earlier roughness, softened by the quiet intimacy. "What's yours?" She flinched at his voice. She swallowed hard, her throat bobbing. "Alara." Her voice was a bare whisper, barely audible above the gentle hiss of the fire. It was strained, raw, as if unused to conversation. "Alara." He tested the name. It felt foreign, unfamiliar. "Alara, I need you to tell me about that necklace." He gestured to the locket. "Where did you get it?" Her hands flew instinctively to the locket, clutching it protectively. Her eyes, suddenly wide again, locked with his, searching. For a moment, a flicker of something profound passed between them. A shared vulnerability, her fear, his desperate need for answers. It was my mother's," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. She gave it to me. It was all I had left of her." Marco's blood ran cold, a chilling realization. Her mother's? This wasn't just a random piece of jewelry. This was a family heirloom, Sophia's heirloom. His sister, his sweet, innocent Sophia, had tragically died 10 years ago, a child. She had never known adulthood, never had children. The pieces didn't fit. They clashed, violently, impossibly. "Your mother," he repeated slowly, carefully. His mind raced, desperately trying to make sense of the impossible. "Who was your mother, Alara? Tell me her name." Her eyes dropped from his, fixed once more on the locket, as if seeking answers there. A deep, shuddering sigh escaped her, a sound of profound weariness, of burdens too heavy for such young shoulders. Marco watched her, his heart a frantic bird trapped in his chest. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that this necklace held more than just a fleeting memory of Sophia. It held a story, a dark, hidden truth that was about to shatter his carefully constructed world. He saw her fragility, her utter exhaustion, and a powerful urge to protect her, to give her strength, surged through him. He wouldn't push her too hard, not yet. He would wait. He would listen. He would find the answers. He would untangle this impossible knot, no matter the cost. His sister's memory, her precious legacy, demanded it. And something in Alara's striking green eyes seemed to plead for it too. He knew his journey had only just begun. This quiet, fearful girl held the key to everything he held dear. The next morning, Alara woke to the comforting smell of freshly brewed coffee and something warm cooking on the stove. She found Marco in the small kitchen, his intimidating presence somehow softened by the domestic task. He looked less like a fearsome boss, and more like a man. A tired man, perhaps, burdened by thoughts unknown to her, his guard slightly lowered. While she slept, he had placed a set of clean, simple clothes on a chair for her, a thoughtful gesture of care. She changed, the soft fabric a welcome relief after what felt like weeks of dirty, torn rags. The locket still hung around her neck, a heavy, constant secret. Marco placed a plate of scrambled eggs and warm toast in front of her. She ate slowly again, warily, her eyes flickering up to watch him. He didn't pressure her. He simply watched her, his expression unreadable, a silent sentinel. After she finished eating, Marco led her to the small, cozy living room. A roaring fire was already burning brightly, chasing away the morning chill. He sat in a worn leather armchair and gestured for her to take the sofa opposite him. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions, but not hostile. It was a silence of waiting, of quiet expectation, for trust to slowly build. "Alara," he began, his voice calm, steady, betraying none of the turmoil within him. "I need you to understand something important. That locket, it belonged to my sister. Her name was Sophia. She died 10 years ago, or so I believed. It was buried with her." Alara's eyes widened, a flicker of raw pain and dawning understanding. She instinctively clutched the locket again, her knuckles white against the silver chain. "My mother. She said it was a gift," she whispered, her voice barely audible, thick with hidden truths. "From her sister. She told me to never take it off." Marco leaned forward, his focus absolute, his powerful frame taut with anticipation. From her sister? Sophia had been his only sister. He had no other siblings. The story was twisting, becoming more complicated with each revelation, yet a fragile, terrifying thread of possibility began to form in his mind. "What was your mother's name?" he asked, his voice tight, barely controlled. "Isabella." Alara's voice was a whisper. Isabella. The name was familiar. Too familiar, striking a discordant note in his memory. Marco's mind raced back through the years. Isabella, a distant cousin, had run away years before Sophia's illness, after an argument with his father. She had vanished without a trace. He knew Isabella had a reputation for making impulsive, bad choices. But what connection could she have to Sophia's locket? "Did your mother ever tell you about Sophia?" He pressed gently, trying to keep the desperation from his voice. "She spoke of a young girl," Alara said, her gaze lost in the fire. "A sweet girl who loved to draw. She said the lion was a symbol of strength, of family. She told me to wear it, always. To remember where I came from. To remember her sister." Marco felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach, a painful twist of dread and desperate hope. Sophia had indeed loved to draw, and the lion was his family's symbol. The details were too specific, too painful, too perfectly aligned to be coincidence. But if Isabella had indeed given Alara the locket, how had she gotten it from Sophia's grave? Or, a more terrifying thought, what if Sophia hadn't actually died? What if she had been taken? He pushed the thought away again, dismissing it as insane. He had seen Sophia. He had felt her cold skin. He had buried her. But the locket, it was undeniable, a solid fact in a world of shadows and lies. Marco knew he needed to investigate, to delve into the past he had so carefully sealed off. He had vast resources, an intricate network that could uncover secrets. But he had to be careful. If this was a grand deception, it could shatter him. If it was the truth, however, it could shake the foundations of his empire and reveal a deep betrayal. "Alara," he said, his eyes meeting hers, holding them firmly, a silent promise. "I need to find out the truth. The real, unvarnished truth. Will you trust me, even though I am a stranger to you?" Alara looked deep into his intense gaze. She saw the unwavering resolve, the storm of emotions raging beneath his calm exterior. She had spent her entire life on the run, trusting no one. But in his eyes, amidst the danger, she saw a desperate plea, a reflection of her own unspoken need for answers, for safety. She saw a chance for belonging. Slowly she nodded, a tiny, courageous gesture. A fragile bridge of trust, built on a shared mystery and a desperate yearning for truth, began to form. A journey into a past neither of them truly understood was about to begin, more perilous, more emotionally demanding, than any gang war. Marco immediately set his intricate network in motion. He assigned his most trusted lieutenant, Dante, to discreetly dig into Isabella's past, her sudden disappearance, and any possible connections to Sophia's final, tragic days. He knew the risks were immense. Questions about Sophia were strictly forbidden in his world. Her memory was a hallowed ground, her loss a raw wound too deep to touch. But for Alara, for the locket, for the impossible hope it represented, he would break every rule. While Dante worked with silent efficiency, Marco focused his attention entirely on Alara. He kept her safe within the secluded cottage, a sanctuary from the outside world. He brought her books, clean clothes, and ensured she was well fed, nourishing her body and soul. Slowly, painstakingly, with immense patience, he began to peel back the layers of her fear, allowing her to feel safe, perhaps for the very first time. He learned that her life had been a constant struggle, a relentless existence of moving from place to place with her mother, Isabella, always on the run, always looking nervously over their shoulders. Alara had never known a stable home, never truly felt secure. Her mother, Isabella, had been distant, secretive, a woman burdened by unseen weight. She rarely spoke of the past, only clinging to the locket as her most cherished possession. She had told Alara it was a symbol of hope, a tangible connection to a family she never knew. Isabella had always seemed burdened, haunted by something unspoken, a profound sorrow she carried deep within her. One evening, as soft rain tapped rhythmically against the window panes, Marco found Alara sketching by the hearth. She used a charcoal stick he'd left for her, drawing with an intensity that utterly surprised him. Her subject was a lion cub, its eyes filled with a longing, a vulnerability, and a wild strength he instantly recognized. It was an unmistakable echo of the lion on the locket. "You draw well, Alara," he observed, his voice soft. She startled, so lost was she in her creative world. She quickly tried to hide the drawing. "Don't hide it," he said gently. "Sophia. She loved to draw. She would spend hours, just like you, lost in her own beautiful world." Alara hesitated, then slowly revealed the drawing. Her gaze, meeting his, held a newfound curiosity, a glimmer of profound connection. This shared detail, this small, intimate echo of Sophia, seemed to bridge the vast, impossible gap between them. "My mother told me to find my family," Alara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She said they would protect me, but she never told me who they were. Only that the locket was the key." A profound sadness settled over Marco. Isabella, his wayward cousin, had carried this impossible secret all her life, and she had passed it on to her daughter. Alara deserved answers, deserved the family Isabella had clearly wanted her to find. Weeks passed, filled with tension and intelligence gathering. Dante's investigation yielded increasingly disturbing results. Isabella had not simply run away. She had been coerced by a rival criminal family, the ruthless Morettis, who sought to gain insidious influence over the Rossi Empire. Isabella, desperate and profoundly afraid, had been forced to make a terrible choice, a soul-crushing bargain. A bargain that, to Marco's horror, involved Sofia. The Morettis, knowing Sofia was Marco's Achilles' heel, his greatest, most tender vulnerability, had targeted her when she was a helpless baby. They had orchestrated her death during a supposed epidemic, a carefully planned deception, swapping her with another child who tragically succumbed to the actual illness. Isabella, already entangled and deeply indebted to the Morettis, had been forced to facilitate the horrific switch, believing, in her desperate fear, that she was saving Sofia from an even worse fate. She had taken Sofia, now secretly renamed Alara, and fled, living a life of constant, grinding fear. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying, agonizing clarity for Marco. The meticulously fabricated death certificate, the quiet, mournful funeral that had torn his family apart. The locket, a desperate mother's hope, a whispered prayer that her child would one day find her way back. Marco stared at the report, his hands clenching into fists. The rage that simmered within him was unlike anything he had ever known. Not at Isabella, who had clearly lived a life of unspeakable torment, but at the Morettis. They hadn't just crossed his family. They had stolen his sister. They had murdered his peace. They had made him bury his own living flesh and blood, mourn a child who was still alive. This was an unforgivable sin. He looked at Alara, sleeping peacefully in the other room, so innocent, so unaware. The locket still rested around her neck, now a blazing beacon of undeniable truth. His sister, alive. The joy that surged through him was almost unbearable, overwhelming, mixed with a chilling, absolute resolve for vengeance. His promise to protect her, to find the truth, was no longer just a duty. It was a holy vow, carved into his very soul. He would bring Sofia home, truly home, and the Morettis would pay 1,000 times over for every tear, every moment of fear, every stolen year of his sister's life. This was no longer just about a necklace. This was about family. And for the Rossi family, there was nothing more sacred. He would prepare for war, a war unlike any before. He would bring justice, an inferno of retribution, and a new dawn for his sister, his Sofia. Marco spent sleepless nights planning his retribution with cold, terrifying precision. He called in every favor, gathered every scrap of intelligence, and rallied his most loyal, most brutal men. The Morettis were a powerful force, but they had gravely underestimated Marco's love for his family and the terrifying ferocity of his long-dormant anger. He would dismantle their empire, brick by bloody brick, until there was nothing left but dust. He would make them regret the day they ever touched a Rossi, especially his Sofia. During this intense, volatile time, Alara, still unaware of the full truth, watched Marco with growing fascination and a burgeoning trust. She saw the subtle shift in him, the steel returning to his eyes, the dangerous calm that settled over him. He was a man on the edge of a cataclysmic storm, but a storm he was orchestrating. She also noticed the tenderness he showed her, a stark contrast to his fearsome demeanor. He made sure she was comfortable, safe, bringing her fresh fruit, ensuring the fire was always lit. He even began to share small, precious stories about his childhood, about a little girl who loved to chase butterflies. One quiet afternoon, Marco found Alara tracing the tiny lion cub on her locket, lost in thought. Her face was etched with a familiar sadness, a deep yearning for answers. He knew it was time to tell her, to finally bring her the truth she deserved. "Alara," he began, sitting opposite her, his voice low, steady. "I know the truth about the locket. And about your mother, Isabella. It's a difficult story, but you deserve to hear it." She looked up, her striking green eyes wide, filled with apprehension. She knew this moment was coming. "Isabella was my cousin," he continued, carefully choosing his words. "A long time ago, a rival family, the Morettis, wanted to hurt my family. They pretended my sister Sophia had died. They swapped her with another child who tragically succumbed. Isabella, my cousin, was caught in their web. Under duress, she was forced to take Sophia and hide her, to keep her safe from the Morettis, to keep her alive." Alara listened, her breath held captive in her chest. Every word Marco spoke chipped away at the foundation of her entire life, revealing a truth more shocking than any nightmare she had ever endured. "Alara," he said, his voice thick with raw emotion, his eyes burning into hers. "You are Sophia, my sister, my little sister, who I mourned for 10 agonizing years. You are alive. You were always alive." Silence descended, heavy and profound. Alara's face was a mixture of disbelief, shock, and a dawning, fragile hope. She touched the locket, then her own face, as if confirming her own existence. The world tilted violently on its axis. Her mother's lifelong secret, her own hidden identity, the constant running. It all made a terrible, beautiful sense now. Tears, hot and fast, finally spilled down her cheeks, a torrent of relief and grief. Not tears of fear this time, but of a profound release, of a lifetime of agonizing questions finally, mercifully answered. She was not alone. She had a family. She had a brother. Marco watched her, his own eyes welling up. He had imagined this moment for years, but the reality was more potent, more heartbreakingly beautiful. He reached out slowly, his large, powerful hand offering solace. "Welcome home, Sophia," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "My brave, beautiful sister. Welcome home to where you belong." Alara, now Sophia, looked at his outstretched hand. It offered warmth, safety, and a lifetime of lost love, of fierce protection. Slowly, tentatively, she took it. Her small hand, scarred and trembling, fit perfectly in his large, powerful one. The connection was electric, undeniable. 10 years of separation, of pain and longing, dissolved in that single, heartfelt touch. A new strength, a fierce determination bloomed within Sophia. She was no longer just Alara, the frightened girl on the run. She was Sophia Rossi, a cherished, integral part of a powerful family, found and finally cherished. And a war was coming. Not just for Marco's vengeance, but for her, for their stolen past, for their fiercely reclaimed future. She would stand by her brother. She would find her place, her true purpose. And together, they would face the storm, united and unbreakable. Her journey of loss was ending, and a new one, filled with protection, belonging, and the fierce, unwavering love of a brother, was just beginning. The locket, once a burden of mystery, was now a shining emblem of hope, of profound reunion, and of a family restored. With the profound truth revealed, a new, brighter chapter began for Sophia and for the Rossi family. Sophia, now fully embraced as Marco's long-lost sister, began to truly heal, her heart mending piece by piece. The haunted, wary look in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by warmth, confidence, and a growing sense of security. She lived within the grand Rossi mansion, no longer hidden, but cherished, protected, and loved fiercely by all. Marco ensured her absolute safety, her every comfort, and began to lay out the groundwork for her future. He was not just her brother. He was her protector, her steadfast anchor in a world she was finally learning to trust, The locket, the small silver lion cub, still rested around her neck. But it was no longer a symbol of a lost past or a dangerous buried secret. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to an unbreakable bond, a tangible, precious reminder of a family reclaimed. Sophia learned to laugh again, a genuine, joyful, unrestrained sound Marco hadn't heard in years. She found her rightful place as a strong, resilient woman who had survived the unthinkable and emerged into the loving, protective embrace of her true family. The empty, aching space in Marco's heart was finally filled, not just by Sophia's miraculous return, but by the profound joy of seeing her safe, loved, and finally home. Their journey, once shrouded in shadow and despair, had ultimately led to light, to belonging, and to an enduring promise of protection and care that would last a lifetime. And that, my friends, is a story of a bond so powerful, so profound, it defied death itself, pierced through decades of lies, and reshaped an empire. It's a compelling reminder that even in the darkest corners of the world, love, true family loyalty, and the relentless pursuit of truth can find a way to pierce through the deepest shadows, bringing healing and hope where only pain, loss, and despair once resided. What did you think of Marco's relentless, unwavering search for the truth, even when it threatened to unravel his entire world? Did Sophia's incredible transformation from the frightened, nameless Alara to the confident, cherished Rossi sister resonate with you the most, showing the power of healing and belonging? Or perhaps the shocking betrayal by the Morettis and the justice Marco delivered truly captivated you? Share your thoughts, your favorite emotional moment, or what aspect of this gripping story made you feel the most deeply in the comments below. We love hearing from you and building this incredible community of story lovers who connect with these powerful narratives. If this tale of dark romance, fierce family loyalty, and incredible personal transformation moved your heart, please make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling journey into the depths of raw human emotion, high-stakes drama, and undeniable love. Your incredible support helps us bring more gripping, emotionally resonant stories like Sophia's to life, and allows us to continue sharing these powerful sagas. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing this journey with us, and we'll see you in the next unforgettable story.